Hello, witches. Welcome to Wisdom in the Weave. Thank you so much for joining us. Wisdom in the Weave is an open public conversation and Q&A with the unbound witches of Bright and Dark Center for all things strange and unusual. The unbound are experts in guiding neurodivergent magical practitioners in repairing their relationship with their lives and their practice. The unbound collectively manage the operations of an international resource center with both virtual and physical locations and do so as a matriarchy. Wisdom in the Weave is unscripted and recorded during a public live stream. To receive notifications for our live recordings or to participate in the conversation, go to our community app space at community.brightanddark.org. We have a very, very pokey topic this month. It's my favorite month of the year. This is what we call the patient moon at Bright and Dark Center. And we are addressing one of the biggest points of trauma and one of the most relatable things in neurodivergent spaces. For those of you that do not know, we are talking about coping mechanisms and addiction. Addiction is actually 50% greater rates of addiction among neurodivergent people than the general population. And it is, as someone who has navigated underground witchcraft spaces for over 25 years, I can tell you firsthand experience with how much we desperately need resources for our communities with regards to our relationship with coping mechanisms and addiction. How do we navigate life when our nervous systems are turned all the way up as ours are? And so, yeah, Ta-da! That's my awkward way of introducing our topic. This is something that, again, fully aware it's very pokey for many of us, because we have firsthand experience with addiction, either personal firsthand experience or we experienced it in our homes growing up. And as we grew up, we created ways of creating buffers for our lived experience because our sensory experience was so overwhelmed all of the time. Um, the approach that we have here at Bright and Dark Center and the way that the Unbound approach things like addiction and coping mechanisms is that, like, first and foremost, we're going to talk about it, right? We're going to talk about the uncomfortable things because we need to have conversations and we need to uh, address the guilt and shame associated with things like coping mechanisms and addiction. That is what keeps us from being able to connect with each other, is this resistance to talking about it, talking about something that affects us so deeply. The it is when I say approaching coping mechanisms without guilt and shame, most people don't have a reference. Well, then what do I do? What do I do other than just not do the thing? What we do is we pause when you catch yourself reaching for a coping mechanism. Could be anything, right? Starting with just asking what's under that reach. Why am I reaching for this coping mechanism now? Because sometimes we do it out of, like, habit. I think that's funny. Out of habit. Of course it's a habit, right? We do it without thinking, right? We just reach for it. But when we take the time to stop and ask, well, why am I reaching for this? What's really going on? And just starting there and gradually building to start having a conversation with what's underneath that reach, right? I'm reaching for my coping mechanism because I'm overstimulated. And this is the only way that I know how to navigate that, right? And creating or finding healthy alternatives, right? Is there another something else that you can reach for? Will that meet your need? A lot of times what we're actually needing is nervous system regulation. And so having a practice where you are cultivating that deeper relationship with your emotions, so you're not in avoidance of your emotions. Uh, so, yeah, I know I feel like I kind of went all over the place. Does anyone have any questions at all? Does anyone want to share their experience with navigating this particular topic? And this is something that everyone that comes through Bright and Dark Center, if you come through foundations, if you're wanting to initiate into the guild or our coven, you have to address this. It's required. So everyone here has addressed this. They've spent at least a month embodying this, if not a month. Well, they've been here for years and years and years, so they've done this over and over and over again. But so here's my invitation to anyone else who wants to talk. Go ahead, Sarsaparilla.
I don't think there's any surprise that I jumped right into this one because I've been pretty open in this community that I'm 8 years alcohol free as of last month. Um, and, I checked most of the boxes that Jen Marie mentioned. I did grow up in a household where there was no alcohol at all. It did not stop me going down that road very, very young, very, very quickly because the neurodivergence, the uncomfortable social woundings that I had, I found was very easily and medicated with drinking. And I found that out like 14, and I had my first drink at 14, and that was that. And I won't go into all the wild good times that I did have. But I was lucky to have the support and found my way into a 12-step program, which then it was kind of my pipeline into fully embracing my witchcraft practice, because the spirituality piece of healing those addictions is so important. But what I wasn't getting from these programs and everything else that I had tried to stop drinking, on my own, or yoga, or whatever, meditation, all the millions of things, was that nervous system regulation and the grace for myself that I've learned, by going through the foundations program and going through these, different moon focuses. And this one in particular really helped me to deconstruct a lot of why I got where I got to, and to give me the other coping mechanisms, right? There's always going to be a coping mechanism, but you can, a lot of times you can pick. And so, if I can sometimes, do a spell or regulate a nervous system or hang out with my plants instead of letting my nervous system get completely dysregulated and reaching for something else that might not be as optimal for me, then I have those skills now. And I feel like my witchcraft practice and foundations program did more for me than a whole lot of years in programs and, white knuckle sobriety type situations. So I do have to be, yeah, I think that's mainly my main point that I wanted to share, that my witchcraft practice, with the foundations of all the other things that I've learned and all the different things that I tried up until that point, really helped me to, gosh, I don't even miss it. Like, I don't even miss it. I'd rather go outside and howl at the moon than get wasted, right? Like, that's just how I feel now, because I found a community where it's okay that I could say that, right? I could say that and it's fine. Like, I didn't have those communities before, and community is such a big part of healing with these coping mechanisms. So I have that. So thank you, guys. I think that's my ramble for now.
Aw. This is us being patient. Does anyone else want to share their experience? Go ahead, Arrow.
I could share kind of my side of it, or like my kind of different way of coping, that I found myself of, once I started digging into this prompt of being like, well, I don't have any addictions. I grew up, with family members who suffered from addiction. And so I found myself going the opposite way to make myself easier. And once I started digging into it more, looking at really like the coping mechanisms that I was using to deal with it, what I found was I was finding ways to put myself into situations where my nervous system was dysregulated, because that was more comfortable for me. And that's where I wanted to stick. And I wanted to be in there. And that's kind of where my addiction was like, put me in these situations where my nervous system is activated, because that's where I'm most comfortable. And that's where I want to live. And so I'd be reaching, my reach was, what else can I do? What things could I put in here? What situations can I put myself in that I'm going to be activated? Because that's the only thing I really knew for the longest time, And so having to sit and actually learn how to be in a non-activated sense, sorry, ambulance going by. Being able to sit with my nervous system not being activated was a huge thing to have to learn through, and trying to find coping mechanisms of dealing with that was, that was a lot to deal with.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Definitely have like both ends of that spectrum. It's not just the personal experience of using coping mechanisms, but also growing up around others who are doing so in a way that is harmful. And it's not just that our nervous systems are overwhelmed. It's also this this what is it? Unseen trauma, not unseen trauma, because it's trauma that we are running from, being told our whole lives that we are too much, or that there's something wrong with us, or that we are unlovable. All of these things can also send us into reaching for coping mechanisms. And what this does is it makes it to where we dissociate from our lived experience. So we're not actually living, we're just in pure survival mode, kind of making it to from one extreme situation to the next. And breaking that cycle is the biggest challenge. You have to identify that it exists and then start creating these or finding practices that work for you that address your sensory load and also address the trauma that you've experienced growing up as a weird person around a bunch of normies. We're trying to figure out before. So we meet for 30 minutes before the podcast goes live. And so we're talking about like, what is the PC like word for like a normal person, right? And, I think, what was it? Sass was saying, is it muggle? Can you say muggle? Is that like, can we say that? And
I don't know if you can say that anymore.
yeah. I usually say mainstreamer, like someone who is mainstreaming. But there's also that like the normie. Is normie a bad word? I don't know. Like, is that bad?
Sound off in the comments and let us know if you're offended by normie or not.
Yeah. I think that the people that we attract would not consider themselves normie.
That's true. Wrong population to ask. Wrong group of people.
Yeah. Read the room, Arrow. Yeah. So we spend a whole month really digging into this. And again, every year we come back to the same thing. So even when you get through foundations, we're still going to come back as a community to address our woundings about coping mechanisms, to address the things that we are most avoidant of, right? What are the things that I really don't want to deal with? Because that's usually the things that we're running from and using some sort of coping mechanism for. Yeah. So there we have it, guys. 16 minutes into the podcast and we've wrapped it all up. There aren't any questions. I think we've done a good job. Let's move on and cut.
Well, would now be a good time. I was just going to say, would now be a good time to also talk about how we are opening up the next class, or the next class of foundations is going to be starting.
That's
Jean-Marie, if you would like to talk about that.
Thank you, Arrow, for reminding me of that. Foundations. I know we say this a lot. Foundations is a program that is 13 months long that addresses 12 of the most common ways that witches are bound by their social conditioning that influences their relationship with their life. And this program is one of the most difficult processes you will ever commit to, but it will absolutely change your entire world and the way that you engage with your life. And we do this, we open foundations quarterly. So enrollment for our autumnal class, our fall class, is now open. So if you are feeling like your guides are wanting you to really like take your practice seriously or take your practice to the next level, this is something that really could be amazing for you. Foundations you can participate in. It is a group process. You are with a class, and learning how to communicate and engage with other witches and actually be seen is a part of the process. It's a part of one of the reasons why it's so difficult too. But it is also our initiation process for our coven, a matriarchal coven. So this deconstruction, decolonization process that is foundations, that is the path of a witch born of shadow, is how you get into this matriarchal, not just get into it, it's how you can even see it from your patriarchal perspective to a matriarchal perspective, right? So it's our initiation process as well. So if you're wanting coven and community work, foundations is the way to do this. And it is very, 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 very well supported because we know that it's an intense process. And for me to sit here and just rattle off all the ways that it's well supported would take another 30 minutes. So the best way for you to find information about that is to go to community.brightanddark.org or go to our website directly at brightanddark.org. And yeah, that's all the announcements I think I was supposed to. And I think, Ocean, weren't you going to say something a minute ago?
Yeah, I had something about coping mechanisms to share.
Yeah, get it.
So I, similarly to what Sarsaparilla was talking about, I felt like my coping mechanisms were supporting me in social situations. But after a while of doing this work, I noticed that it wasn't necessarily providing the cushioning for the social wounding that I thought that it was, but it was actually serving to deepen it. Like often I would be so afraid of like engaging and getting hurt again that I would cope to the point of like taking myself to that place of like what might reopen the wounding rather than like actually engaging with things in a different way, in like a new way that might give me a different outcome, which is not, you know, to say that I did anything wrong, but I noticed that that was something for me. And then also that I think the topic of sensory seeking versus sensory avoidant is really interesting too. I know that Era was talking about sensory seeking as like a way to cope, and I find myself like, I don't know if it's the ADHD or what, but I find myself running back and forth to both extremes. It's either I am not stimulated enough and now must cope with that, or I am overstimulated and now must cope with that. And you know, we talk about balance, but what does that actually mean when you're trying to like find where your body is most comfortable with this, like this, you know, human functioning system that is constantly changing over time. So like the fabric that you hated last week is now the thing that you need most, but you got rid of all of the things that feel like that in the house when you hated it. Like it's really interesting trying to cope with that. We should make like a sensory exchange group where you like, I hate this texture. Does anybody need it? And I also wanted to say that I think escapism too is an addiction. I think that we can sometimes parse it out into like, what am I addicted to? Like materially or experience wise. But I think also for me, kind of the root of it is escaping myself or escaping situations where I can't be my whole self. Feels like kind of what's under the reach for me, like now that I'm like looking at it, like coping with the urge to take up space, coping with wanting to be my whole self, but then if I am, I'm too much, and then so I have to cope to temp myself down. That's something I struggle with. Well, not anymore, I'm deciding, but I did. Let's say it that way. So we're working the magic, right? We do
Can I
have a
jump
couple of
in?
questions too. Oh, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say, can I riff off of you, Ocean?
Yeah.
And I think kind of address some of the questions that are coming up too, because they seem to be mainly around what coping skills we have developed, or coping mechanisms we've developed to kind of keep us as a replacement for those. And I think, well, now here's my brain going 4 different ways, right? One of the things that I've learned to do as well is to not think of it as like I was a bad coping mechanism and like shame myself for that coping mechanism. That coping mechanism kept me safe, and it's what I needed to do in that moment. May not have been the healthiest or the best way of dealing with the situation, but in that moment, that was what I needed to do, and that's what I did, And so taking out of like that good bad binary, and sitting in a place of like that understanding and like that gratitude for myself and what I had to do to survive up until now, when I'm learning better things, I'm getting to know myself more, and I'm learning what I need to do to cope in a healthier way that keeps me, as Ocean was saying, a little bit more regulated, not the up and down, right? Because I feel that of, the one extreme to the next extreme. And, I think as we've all been talking, I think we've also been pointing out, like, we still do coping mechanisms. They're still an important part to have in your tool belt. It's what is going to support you the most in that moment. And I find that varies depending on, as Ocean was saying, am I overstimulated? Am I understimulated? Am I tired? Am I hungry? And it's what's really helped is connecting with my body and letting my body tell me what I need and not letting my mind tell me what I need. Because my mind will tell me all sorts of stuff. But my body is what actually tells me what I need, And so learning to take that moment when I'm starting to feel myself becoming activated and saying, and like doing that, I'm reaching for something. I'm, like looking for some sort of like experience or an input, I then take a moment and say, okay, what does my body need? What is it? And then listening to it. And it took I thought I was really good at listening to my body, by the way. I thought I was really connected with my body. I'm a dancer. I know my body well. Spoiler alert, I did not. I did not at all. I was really used to not listening to it and just making it do what I needed it to do in the moment, But being able to listen to it now and actually say, okay, what is it that I need? Do I need to actually take a day where I don't do anything but lay on the couch? And that's hard to do for me. But I've learned that has helped me so much to just then be able to recover. And, I do, to Ocean's point of, I use a lot of escapism. I read books because that is one way that I could turn my brain off. I stopped reading books for the longest time. I love reading. I was an avid reader growing up, but I stopped reading them because I was just doing all these other things and doing all these other experiences. And that's what I needed to do. And that's what I found that I need to do, is to have some escapism. Doom scrolling. Sometimes I need doom scrolling. Sometimes I need to just turn my brain off, but it can get too much. And that's part of it too, of sometimes with these coping mechanisms, it's the doing it too much as well too, So being able to recognize what do I need? And then when do I need to move on to something else now? When have I met my body's needs? When have I met my needs? And I'm able to move on to the next thing now. All right, I think that's the 3 or 4 different directions my brain went. And it looks like Morgana is ready to jump in with something. Over to you, Morgana.
Thank you very much. I think it's the same kind of riff off of Arrow and Ocean, but the idea of my coping and or addictions, right, are kind of a journey, as they all are. But if I think about my younger self, I smoked cigarettes and I drank a lot when I was younger, and my narrative about those things was always like, I'm taking the edge off, right? I need just to take the edge off. That was the only a story I was telling myself. I don't actually typically like to feel altered in a like, I wasn't getting really drunk, right? I wasn't like getting high, like to the point of not being able to function. Like that's not a place I was trying to go. Now I know I was just trying to like soothe not only my physical sensations, but my, psychological stuff, and just trying to like bring everything down a notch. And so for me now, having gone through therapy and foundations and figuring out my health diagnoses, all of those things, now I can, and understanding that I'm autistic, right? So now I know that the taking the edge off was really me trying to figure out like what was going to soothe me. So what soothes me now, right? Soothing me now is like a pile of fluffy big blankets, right? Jen Marie knows that there's 500 fleece blankets in this house.
Yes, can confirm. Can confirm.
And she so kindly washes and folds them all the time. But right, so like fuzzy blankets, my critters, right? My pets, like petting my pets. And maybe it's breath sometimes. Maybe it's, who knows? Maybe it's being with the people I love. Maybe it's laughing or dancing in the kitchen. All of those kind of like things that now I know how to be in my body and know how to recognize what I'm seeking. Maybe I need electrolytes. Maybe I need a drink of water. But where before, for me, as a dissociated person who didn't understand why I felt so vibraty all the time, then it was a cigarette and a drink, right? So I think it's just this evolution of understanding. And to the point before too, none of those things are bad, right? If you need to go smoke a cigarette or whatever it is to function right now, cool. But there are other ways as well, right? It's just a matter of taking the time to kind of recognize what your fuzzy blanket is, whatever that may be. Sass.
You all said Morgan, I didn't want to jump in, but I wanted to jump off of that too while we're still talking about, what is good and bad, just, in the good bad binary, if you're using that too, of your coping mechanisms. And a very simple thing that someone helped me understand once was, because like you said, like you just said, right? Like sometimes that cigarette it's not bad, like to just go have the one cigarette. I don't think that it is personally, but when I find myself reaching for things consistently or maybe struggling with, should I be, using this to cope or something, is like a question that I can ask myself is, does this support me aligning with my full authentic self? Right? Or is it impeding my connection with my full authentic self and my community as well? And so it's a very simple question. And if I kept coming back to that, it would really help me evaluate, is this, lifting me up, or is this maybe something I need to take a deeper look at?
I love the questions, and I love the questions that are coming in so much, guys. Oh,
Yeah.
Go
I was
ahead,
going to say
Ocean.
that leads us exactly into one of the questions perfectly. The first question is how to identify coping mechanisms that are quote unquote healthy for you. Yeah.
So the healthy for you thing. Okay. So I know that because Helvy has a question in there saying, how do you know if it's a true need or just a coping mechanism, like with food or relationship? It is a true need regardless. A coping mechanism is a true need. You need it for a reason. You're going to it for a reason. And I think that the point of having these conversations, right, of talking about this, the point of asking yourself, what am I avoiding with my favorite coping mechanism? Asking myself, what is under my reach? Why am I reaching for this? That's the gold. That's the gold. It's not about the coping mechanisms. It's about what you're avoiding by using them. Okay. So if you're like, yeah, Jen, but I need a coping mechanism in order to go to Costco, right? I need a buffer in order to go to Costco. The coping mechanism isn't bad or wrong. And I can't stress that enough. What we're talking about is opening a conversation with yourself, because underneath every single time you reach for something is information about your needs that are not being met, right? So, for example, if it doesn't matter what the coping mechanism is. You could be completely addicted to huffing chicken feathers. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you're looking to that as a source of relief instead of addressing what's underneath that reach. Okay. So if you're like, I get stressed out every time I go to Costco, I need to huff chicken feathers before I go because that soothes me. But that's problematic. Looking for other ways. So what is it about Costco that stresses me out? Oh, it's the lights. Okay, well, let's wear sunglasses, right? Let's go with a buddy, right? There's so many other things that are actually addressing the problem. The thing about the our usual use or when coping mechanisms get into the addiction zone is that we are ignoring what's under our reach and going straight for the thing, right? I, huff chicken feathers, and that is my only source of relief, right? It is not your only source of relief. Okay, so it's having that question. If you're stressed out, if you're finding out that you're having to, I probably should stop saying huffing chicken feathers because there's probably something that's gonna like ping me. I don't know.
We're gonna get in some kinds of weird algorithm.
Some like, I'm sorry, chicken people, if that's your jam. Like, I don't mean to.
We're
yuck
not
your
shaming
yum.
huffing
No.
chicken
No
feathers.
shame.
We're saying that that's okay, actually.
And for me, humor is a way of like navigating uncomfortable situations. So that's a coping mechanism as well. There's so many things that we do to navigate our lived experience in a way that isn't overwhelming for us. So that was my like touch on Helvy kind of thing. Go ahead, Arrow.
To kind of riff off of that, I think that's where, for like my experience with this journal prompt, the first year, I looked at it as I need to change my coping mechanisms, and I didn't get very far with that because I wasn't doing what Jen Marie's saying. I wasn't looking at why am I doing it. And I think that's the focus of it, is that it's so easy to focus on that the bad, quote unquote, addiction, the bad coping mechanisms, I need to stop this. This has to stop. I got to do this. This isn't normal for some of these that not are healthy or unhealthy. They're just flat out weird. And I mean, we're here for the weirdness, so let's go for it. But like when we're out in public or doing something, it looks weird. It feels weird. It makes us stand out. That's not what we're not looking at that piece of it. And it's so ingrained in us with that social conditioning that we need to change that, because we need to be normal. We need to look like other people. We need to do what other people do, that it's easy to get stuck there, Not everyone does, but it's like I got stuck that first year. Then the second year, when this came back around, I was able to dive a little bit deeper into it because I had done some additional work on, a whole lot of other things. But deconstructing that social conditioning, and being able then to say, oh, that's not actually what this prompt is looking at. This prompt is looking at why. Why do I need coping mechanisms? And then addressing that then helps address some of these other things. A lot of times it's like, all right, cool. I'm going to go out and do this. People will be fine. I might like jump around and yell a little bit. Who cares if they look at me? All right, Ocean, I think you raised your hand too. You had something you wanted to put in, and I saw Persephone, your dog, wanted to have something to say too.
Don't get her started. She'll take up the rest of the podcast. She's pretty talkative. Yeah, I did. I was going to also address Helvi's comment that coping with boredom is also part of this. Because I feel like we think that boredom is unhealthy. Like it feels like, unproductive, right? Like I don't know about you guys, but I get this jolt of like, I should be doing something. Like as soon as I start to feel bored, I'm like, I should be doing something. And then I have to cope with that feeling of thinking I should be doing something. And then I get frustrated because I'm like, well, I spent so much time coping with the feeling of like thinking that I need to do something that I didn't actually do anything. And I didn't actually let myself relax or rest or be bored. And I think that boredom can be inspiration if you let it be. I think that boredom is a great precursor, I'm finding, for meditation. It's like I'm bored and I don't necessarily, if I can just for a moment put my foot in the door and say, what if I just sat down like outside for a moment? Or I like outside because it's different than inside, but like it's also like I know, right? That's the most agoraphobic thing I could say, but here we are. I'm working on it. Sitting outside allows me to connect with things that are outside of that, like are outside of my expectations, right? Most of the stuff inside of the house I can kind of predict, because I know my animals well. I know the people in my house well. I know my house really well. It is when I'm outside that I encounter even bugs in the garden that I wouldn't normally see. I had a praying mantis crawl on me yesterday. That was like a whole experience. And I get to connect with the plants that are growing in the yard, and I get to actually for a moment engage in presence. And then after that, if what I really want to do is my coping mechanism, I have a bit more of a gap to decide that, or I can take it in another direction. Because a lot of times when I go outside, I either end up thinking about something I need to do, and then I kind of make a plan in my head and I end up going back in to do it, or I get inspired by something outside and I'm like, oh, okay, I want to engage in this way. I'm inspired to connect with this person. It gives you more options. I wouldn't even say you have to go outside. It is really great to go outside, but going when you're bored, if you go into another room or the outside, that will open up possibilities. I don't know what it is. You guys ever have the thing, like the Sims thing
It's
where
threshold
people
magic.
What's that?
Wouldn't that be like threshold magic?
Yes, absolutely, right? It's like the Sims thing where it's like somebody just canceled your task, and so you walk into a room and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing in here. It's like your task has been canceled. That's the same energy that you can use to your benefit when you're bored, because you may walk into another room and that coping mechanism task gets canceled, and then you're able to choose a different kind of task. So
also, Ocean, did
yeah.
you just talk yourself out of having to go outside again?
I'm very convincing. That's the problem. Okay. It is also the solution, and I'm aware of both. It's real fun up in here. We do have more questions unless somebody else wanted to weigh in on the boredom.
I do a little bit. And this is for all of those gold star clutching overachievers like myself. Yeah.
As Arrow holds up her very, very plushy
actual
gold star.
Yes. We actually had a pillow fight with those gold stars on camera a couple of years ago. Anyway, I kind of want to not necessarily twist it back to that it's not about the coping mechanism, because there are coping mechanisms that are not great for us that are considered socially acceptable, right? When I get stressed out, I go to the gym, right? When I am uncomfortable, I just take on more work. I do more projects. I keep busy, right? All of those things are actually harmful. And all of those things are keeping you from addressing the root of what it is you're trying to avoid by using a coping mechanism in the first place. Right. So I could suggest all kinds of coping mechanisms, right? But as a chaos witch who is like borderline chaotic neutral, I'd say do what you want, like do what works, effective or ineffective, right? But you won't even have to do it if you actually address what it is that you're running from, right? If you're like, man, my system is always overstimulated all the time and I'm always stressed out, so I'm always using this coping mechanism, and all like you don't ever ask what's under the reach, but when you finally do, you're to find out that you're in a shitty relationship that is incompatible and you're investing all of this physical, mental, and emotional labor so that you're exhausted and having to reach for coping mechanisms. So you're not actually looking and addressing the fact that you're in a shitty relationship. Right. So that's the kind of stuff. A lot of coping mechanisms are to keep us in incompatible, problematic dynamics. And if you don't stop and look at why you're needing to avoid something or get away from something, you're gonna like be constantly, it's never gonna end, right? You can't just not use coping mechanisms. No one's asking for that. You can't just switch to healthy coping mechanisms. No one's asking you for that. What we're asking is, why are you using coping? What is underneath that reach? What is going on there? We are taught to avoid conflict, to avoid rocking the boat at all costs. And what all costs means is this stuff. Avoid rocking the boat. It's better that you drink yourself into oblivion than it is for you to get out of that shitty relationship, right? We convince ourselves of this stuff. So there is no guilt or shame for using some kind of coping mechanism, right? But the thing that is important is that we start talking about it and we don't isolate ourselves with this. Right. I don't want to talk to anyone about the fact that I'm addicted to huffing chickens because it's embarrassing. Right. When we don't know, Sarsaparilla could be a chicken huffer too. And then
that's going to be my new title in the future, chicken huffer.
But we don't know that we have points or possibilities for connection until we start actually talking about it and taking the guilt and shame and stigma out of the fact that we get overstimulated and we were not taught how to actually navigate our lives in a way that is expansive. Like, we weren't given those tools at all. And when you're asking for the best coping mechanisms are somatic. They're somatic. They are embodied. If you are not taking the time to actually allow your physical body to process your emotions. And I know even saying that sounds cryptic because none of us were taught how to do that even. So actually saying, hey, I am allowed to feel stress in my body. It feels like this right now. And explaining that, you just going through that process of explaining, it feels like tension in my shoulders. It feels like heat in my chest. And then taking deep breaths, that is embodying. That is processing. That's what processing your emotions looks like. Your emotions are chemicals that have been released by your brain because of something you believe about your life. That's it. That's it. Right? So they're not your enemy to be avoided at all costs. And it only takes, 90 seconds to actually let your body process your emotions, even big emotions like grief, right? And I saw that there was a question that came up earlier talking about grief specifically. And we do tend to go toward, coping mechanisms when we experience things like grief because we weren't given tools. And most of us don't have practices to process grief, right? I'm a human that has a lot of firsthand experience with death and grief and passing and those sorts of things. I always suggest that you give your grief somewhere to go. And I love altar work for this. Setting up an altar to honor the person that, or whatever it is that you're grieving, and spending time there to let it out, to actually experience your grief. Because what ends up happening is we push it away and push it away and push it away, and we just try to get back to our normal life as much as possible. But spoiler, your normal is completely upended. And so just getting back to normal, like that's not the goal. The goal is to adjust your relationship with this new normal, okay? And giving space to actually grieve. And you can be as intricate and extravagant with this altar as you want. You can have special tissues that you use. You can collect your tears if you want to do that. You can write in a journal, write to the person that has passed, your thoughts and your experiences, right? Letting it out, okay? Your grief is sacred. It just doesn't have somewhere to go is usually the problem. So giving it somewhere to go is a whole thing. So I hope that was helpful. Go ahead, Morgana.
I would also add a thing I learned in grief counseling, actually, that some people who are, neurodivergent, part of the avoidance of grief is that we feel as if once we start to grieve, it will take us over, right? Take over our whole day, our whole life. There's no time, right, to do that because we have other things to do. And so when I was kind of in the depths of grief, I actually scheduled it. So I blocked out time and then sat with my altar. And if I cried, oh, great. And if I didn't, that's okay too. But then I had an alarm, and then I was done for that part of that day, right? Because then I wasn't afraid to sit with it, because I wasn't afraid to be overwhelmed by it, because I had a stopping point. Because for the dissociative of us, that sometimes that the idea of that wave of grief feels like it's just too much, like it's overwhelming. So I used to just schedule, literally schedule 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever you felt. But I found that to be really helpful myself, just throwing that in there as a tool.
I love this conversation. I always love our conversations, though. This is so great.
I think can I add a little nib onto the end of that? Just that I think it's really important to set up aftercare for yourself afterwards. If you can have a meal already prepared, or have yourself set up to make some food, or have a space set up that you can just hit play on a show or something. However you can take care of yourself afterwards, I think is really important too, because then that's somebody mentioned dopamine, and what I've noticed about dopamine is it's not necessarily as responsive to excitement as it is to care. is like for my, like, I've noticed that for myself. It's like the dopamine hits are like usually because I'm meeting a need, like, and sometimes excitement does, you know, meet that need. But like when I've set up and gotten ready and gotten like prepared like a really nice meal for myself, there is something really like, I don't know, exciting about that. Maybe that's just me, but I think care can be a way to engage too with that.
That's a good point, Ocean. Thank you for bringing that up. And hydrate. Grief is remarkably dehydrating. Remarkably dehydrating. So look at everyone. Drink up, witches. Look at you. See, this is one of the many powers of community right here. Look at us reminding each other to stay hydrated. Well, well, well. We are wrapping up our, what is it, Patient Moon Wisdom in the Weave recording for this podcast. Thank you to all of the witches that joined in the conversation. This is so great. The more y'all interact, the better it is for everyone. There is no dumb question. There is no our bar for weird is really, 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 really high. So there's not a lot that you could say that would surprise any of us. It's important for you to remember that these witches here in this podcast, they engage significantly in this underground community. We engage with witches, like a lot of witches every day. So in fact, most of our social connections are with witches. And I think that context is important when we're saying, hey guys, you're not too weird for us. We can hold you. Like, we can answer that question. We can help you. You just have to be brave enough to voice that, to communicate that. Okay. And for all of you witches that are currently enrolled in foundations, this is their first month, or the first day of the month. So the first day that they get this new curriculum. This is a difficult one. This is a hard one. We are here for you should you have any questions at all. There is the app space there in the open chat that we can continue this conversation. And it's important that we continue this conversation. You are allowed to feel the full spectrum of emotions in your body. You're allowed to. There are no off-limits emotions for these witches. And your willingness to meet those emotions and address those emotions is directly related to your ability to work big magic. So this is some Mr. Miyagi Yoda stuff for when you get into the coven and you're working big magic. You got to be able to let yourself feel emotions in order to do that. All right. We have a couple minutes left. I can continue to yammer on if you guys want me to. I'm good at that. It's one of my giftings, apparently. Big news at Weird Brook. Weird Brook is the homestead and farmhouse for the coven. Morgana and I are the stewards for Weird Brook. Weird Brook is a rehabilitation space for neurodivergent witches in our coven. We are in the process of converting one of the bedrooms here in the farmhouse to a full-time recording studio. That is very exciting. So those days of when the witches are here at Weird Brook and we're sitting in a horribly echoey dining room trying to make the most of what we've got are ending. We actually are going to be able to bring you some quality video content. I am stoked about that. And we will be launching another podcast called The Rise of the Wayward, because we have found that this massive underground community of witches, it's so hard to actually keep everyone up to date and current with all of the stuff that's going on in our community and all of the ways that we are moving to support not just this underground community, but also our local communities. So we're going to be doing that. Morgana and I will be doing our very best to be sharing that with you guys. And that's going to be on Wednesdays is when we're going to do it. And we will let you know what time here in the next few weeks. We don't have a launch date, of course, because we're like in the flow. But we'll let you know as soon as we get actual like dates and times and all of that. But it should be before September. We're going to be able to actually start letting you guys know all of the things. So there. Again, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will talk to you very soon. Ta-da!
Ah.